I apologize for all the echoes. They seem to create convention centers to be echo chambers or something, but is it better like that, or it's hard to get the mic just right? One common theme that I've been listening to the talks is that residents aren't really much different from those who aren't residents. You know, they have similar interests and want to be involved in their lives and feel that they have a stake in things, and so that's something to have in mind. Just to refresh, I'm Jack Cumming. I'm a resident in the CCRC in California. I'm also an actuary. How many of you know what an actuary is and what actuaries do? Well, quite a few. We're sort of a hidden profession, if you will. But there are 5 of us, as far as I can tell, at this Leading Age conference, and that's probably a good sign, because the nature of the industry is actuarial in its essence, so that's a positive thing. Now, in truth, I was an actuary before I became a resident, and I didn't suddenly become an object of compassion and care merely because I became a resident. This is the dilemma that confronts many providers. Some residents need care and deserve compassion, but not all. The tendency is to view residents as customers. That is something separate and apart from the salaried staff. Residents, though, tend to view themselves as participants. We were very pleased and surprised on Sunday morning to learn that Leading Age, the organization sponsoring this conference, has had an engaging residents cabinet. I think I got the name of that group correctly, Engaging Residents Cabinet. And they're very proud that they have one resident on that committee, and they wanted to come together and find out what we thought about things. They sort of had a framework of how we could, but it might have been so much more if they had simply partnered with our organization of residents. And so we were quite surprised. The meeting was billed as the residents networking meeting, and so I thought it was networking, and I sort of rolled in half an hour late expecting to meet some interesting people, and they had started a program promptly and on time, and they had a very formal structured program. The saying is that residents imagine that they look and they think they act 10 years younger than the way others view them. I know that I do, so I'll plead guilty to that. My experience, however, is that residents who are 100, and we have several in my community, probably look and act 30 years younger than the way they're viewed. They do act 30 years younger than the way they're viewed. Carlin Maxson, who was 100 earlier this year, walks all around Carlsbad Village every day, and he's a regular figure in town, and people talk to him. I don't think they have a clue that he's a centenarian. So age is all relative. Some people maintain their vitality and acuity to a great age, while others may need help sooner. Many resident-originated initiatives can be characterized as a cry by resident activists that they simply be treated with respect. Thus, there are calls for resident bills of rights, resident board representatives, resident engagement with management, and the like. These cries for these things tend to be as much evidence of dissatisfaction and agitation for such requirements is more vociferous in facilities in which residents are treated with condescension or in which they feel patronized. One of the most patronizing condescensions is to refer to residents who have invested their life savings in an entrance fee contract as no more than customers. The term customer, and implies a distance between the person served and the person providing the service. It is not a communal term. It is a transactional term, and we are not transactions. My dream is that Americans, all Americans, be encouraged and supported in an effort to provide for their own aging. Those who are well off may have to pay a little bit more to provide for the poor, the sick, and the lame. After all, we're all in this together. But the dream is that each generation be able to feel pride in its contribution to the continuing saga of humankind. Everyone I know of my generation, I should tell you, I'm 76 years old, so you know my generation. I guess we're called the silent generation by some.
The greatest generation.
No, you're the greatest generation. I think I'm the silent, but anyway. But we can all talk about that. Okay. But anyway, those who are, after all, we're all, but the dream, everyone I know of my generation wants to feel that we have provided for ourselves while we could, and that we can hold our heads up tall and proud with self-respect when the time comes that we need help and assistance. Most older people don't seek to be objects of charity. They want to feel that they're self-sufficient. They want to feel that the productive contribution that they made to society during their working years can allow them to sustain themselves through their years of retirement. The golden promise of the senior housing and senior services industry is that it has the potential to help our larger society fulfill this dream of self-sufficiency. That bears repeating. The golden promise of the senior housing and senior services industry is that it has the potential to help our larger society fulfill this dream in which people provide for themselves and avoid becoming mere objects of pity. NACRA, the National Continuing Care Residents Association, is seeking to do this by trying to shift the provider mentality from doing things for residents to doing them with residents. Our approach is manifold. We have a booth at this meeting. We're putting on this panel presentation. This is a new foray for us. We're developing concepts for best practices. We're working on consumer guides. We're considering model laws, model regulations, model enforcement protocols to try to bring greater rationality to the regulation of the industry. We seek to advance intellectual engagement through NACRA-U. You see the website up here on the PowerPoint at www.nacrau.com. And that's a benefit to residents, but it can also help providers, regulators, and others. We met last April in Virginia, and we organized an interactive brainstorming exercise among the over 70 residents present from around the country. It was led by Billy Allman, who may be known to some of you in the faith area as a person who's worked consistently with churches through her career, but she was very effective with us. And we identified the top concerns among today's generation of residents. And I was surprised by what was number one. Number one was the shift of risk from providers to residents, the move away from Type A contracts toward Type C contracts, which puts the risk of aging, the financial risk, onto the residents. Many residents are caught by surprise. They think they know what a CCRC is. They don't know the saying in the industry that if you've seen one CCRC, you've seen them all. They think those words have some meaning. So they move in, they think there's everything set, and then they find out, my goodness, my wife has to go to this skilled nursing facility, and I'm paying $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 a month in addition to what I pay for my own apartment. My assets may run out. I may not be able to make it. That is a great concern to residents. Next, by the way, the handout you have relates to that, and I'll say a word about the handout. If you didn't get a copy of the handout, there are other copies around here. I think Al has some, or they're in the back?
In back now.
Okay. But anyway, the point is the handout shows the various different contract options that are possible. All of those options are mathematically equivalent. Now, some providers fear the risk involved in a type A contract, so they say, we'll avoid that risk by putting it onto the residents. I guess the residents are supposed to be able to better handle it. But there are reinsurance tools available to help manage that risk. There are all sorts of tools available, and for some reason, the industry has not availed itself of those capabilities, and that's something that we need to work on. The second major concern among residents was one that's already been alluded to, and that was the wish for greater transparency. Particularly popular is this wish to have resident representation on boards. And this morning I heard an anecdote over breakfast that was kind of interesting for me. One community said that they're no longer going to exclude the possibility of residents on boards. They're still going to use the same criteria they use to be sure that the board is filled with the qualifications that are needed for effective board service. They're still going to adhere to the board requirement, the duty of loyalty, care, obedience, and confidentiality. But they're not going to exclude residents. Residents who are qualified will be allowed to be on the board. Well, to me, it sounds like discrimination if you exclude residents from board service. So that's something that's a promising development. Moving on, I'll just go quickly over the rest of the topics that were of concern because those are the top ones. People are concerned about increasing operating costs and increasing monthly fees. Prices are going up everywhere. None of us like it. We're all staying in hotel rooms that cost far more than they ought to. The increase in the number of fees for service, some residents feel betrayed if they move in and are promised a certain package of services, only to find out after they come in that they decide that transportation that was once included is now going to be a fee-based service, that kind of thing. They're frightened by the prospect of higher health care costs. They're confused by the changes going on in society now. They're worried about what appears to be the lowering of entry standards, and there's been some conversation about that at this meeting. They're worried about the challenge of occupancy in a down real estate market. Well, who isn't? And they're focused on the need to better educate prospective residents so they can make better choices. That was expressed as saying, a lot of residents were saying, the new people coming in, the younger group, are asking more questions than we used to ask, and we need to have answers for them. So those are things that we're focusing on. What can we conclude from all this? Our topic is what CCRC providers can learn from residents. The title we originally proposed was How Residents Can Work with Providers for Better Living. So it's sort of interesting that the people who put the conference together wanted us to have a different focus. I'm not sure how that came about, but I'm not totally unhappy with it. Our phrase put the onus on residents to work with providers. The changed phrasing shifts the focus to the provider side. Like any relationship, learning is a two-way situation. And the King and I, Anna is engaged as teacher for the children of the King of Siam. I'm sure you all remember that. I think, while some of the younger people may not remember the King and I, but you should watch the movie. She summarizes the experience with the joyful song, Getting to Know You, and you probably remember it. She says, it's a very ancient saying, but a true and honest thought, that if you become a teacher, by your pupils, you'll be taught. Let's take a moment, though, to reflect on that. That means that providers may come in thinking they've been to school and they know what we need, but they can learn from residents because we have some idea of what we might need and how we might be able to help them. I want to look at the promises made to you in your program. The learning objectives were also shifted from what we had suggested, but I think we're going to be able to fulfill what we've been assigned. First, you were promised that you were going to realize how to bring resident preferences into harmony with provider realities. Realities are cold things. Resident preferences tend to be soft things. But the answer is simply stated, difficult to realize. And I think Ruth or Marlene spoke about it already. The solution is communication, more communication, still more communication. It doesn't come easily to everyone to interact with a wide variety of personalities and life experiences that are found among the residents in the CCRC. The job falls to the executive director, people like Heather up here, and there are some who have a talent for communication and understanding, and others who are more comfortable in a command role. The ability to listen and to emphasize are key talents for top-grade executive directors. The next learning point was that you were promised that you would obtain a resident perspective on how providers can better position their organizations to meet the needs of current and future residents. Almost all residents delayed moving to a CCRC, but wish they had made the move earlier. I don't know of anyone who is living in a CCRC that doesn't say, gosh, this is wonderful, I wish I'd been here for a long time. We can learn from their experiences to better tell the CCRC story. This is central to NACRA's mission today. Right now, fewer than 5% of those eligible, the best data I've seen suggests it's 2.5%. So roughly 2.5% of those eligible for the integrated living environment of a CCRC choose to live in one. Marketing has become a challenge. The CCRC product has come to be seen as one that is sold as much as it is one that is bought. Yet it need not be so. And residents can help providers to better understand how to position the product they offer so that it appeals more broadly. I'm constantly stunned at the number of CCRC executives who say that they do not plan to live in a CCRC when they retire. I often, when I meet executives who are nearing retirement, do you plan to live in a CCRC? Oh no, I want active living. That reluctance should be a signal to them that they need to do more to make the product they offer one that they themselves would be willing to buy. That will take work. Finally, today we've been asked to, or promised, or told that you're going to get the benefit from this great wise panel, delve into the hot button items that can help CCRC providers gain credibility among prospective residents. This is a tough one. We had suggested, what can providers do to build credibility for CCRC living among prospective residents? Elevating that to involve hot button items is a tough one, since if the hot buttons were clear, CCRCs would be jam-packed across the nation with long waiting lists, and they're not yet. Of course, it's easy to say that the prospect has to be able to picture him or herself as a resident and feel comfortable about it. That's the essential thing. If you can help a person to say, gee, I think I really belong there. I enjoy being there. I like these people. They're much more likely to move in than if they say, well, those aren't people like me. They're snooty. They're this, they're that. And so that's an important aspect. That's easily said, but hard to accomplish. We have a study project, we in NACRA have a study project underway to address just this challenge, and we'll expose it to all of you for comment once it's ready for public view. It's not quite there yet. The challenge isn't just the vacancy rate that you may experience in your own facility. The challenge is the low market share that integrated congregate living enjoys among the larger populace. I don't need to tell you that these have been challenging times. They've been challenging times for providers. Sales have been harder to come by. Waiting lists have dwindled. They've been challenging times for residents as well. Residents, too, have seen their investment portfolios drop in value. They may fear that they will outlive their assets. Many do fear that they're going to outlive their assets. They know there's some vague promise that somebody's going to keep them in residence if that happens, but when you read your contract, you say, oh, I'm not sure that I'm going to fit. I went on a cruise. Maybe they'll disqualify me because I went on a cruise. That's an area of concern for many residents. Costs continue to rise, and with them, monthly fees, as the residents see their assets melt away. But we're all in this together. We're all Americans. We've been united in these debates. I don't know how many of you got to see the debate last night, but it struck me what a fine country we are and what a fine way we have for choosing our leaders. Together, there is nothing we can't accomplish. Americans have been a resilient people from the earliest settlements in a harsh and uncompromising new world. We are resilient to this day, and with mutual respect and concerted effort, we will move forward into a bright tomorrow.